Hi, it's Mitch from PickDawgz.com, and it's Tuesday, June 11, 2024, covering all 15 Major League Baseball games today, doing the first 5 innings. MLB, the only sport in action today, so those are all the first halves and first 5 innings that we have. But, of course, we'll be back with the NBA Finals tomorrow for Game 3. Of course, we also do Today in History, and Today in History, Nolan Ryan, his 6th career no-hitter. That is a lot of no-hitters. That is a Major League record, and of course, that is a lot of blanks on the scoreboard. Of course, we're hoping that we blank out the books once again today. Videos, we've been doing it a few weeks now, and we've been doing pretty well with these picks. Certainly not winning every game, but winning a lot more than we're losing. That's the whole goal, just turning profit day after day. We'll continue to do that, crushing the books. Let's get this thing going. For our first game, we head to Baltimore, where the Orioles are taking on the Atlanta Braves. Albert Suarez on the bump for the Orioles, and it is Max Fried on the mound for the Braves. The Orioles, of course, red hot, did not get Monday off as their series against the Rays was extended into Monday, and the Braves coming off of a much-needed day off as this team just not playing very good baseball right now. Max Fried is generally a second half of the season pitcher, but he's pitched pretty well recently, but the Orioles have just been crushing left-handed pitching. In fact, they've been crushing all hitting, but over their last 10 games, hitting .275 against lefties. Meanwhile, while Fried is certainly, considered the more well-known commodity on the mound, Suarez, a reliever turned starter, he usually only goes 4 or 5 innings in a game. He's got a sub-2 ERA on the season and a sub-2 ERA over his last 3 starts as well. The Orioles playing well, they're at home. The Braves not playing that well on the road. I'll take the O's in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Detroit, where the Tigers are hosting the Nationals. Kenta Maeda on the bump for the Tigers, while Mitchell Parker gets the ball for the Nationals. Heading into last game, we said Parker always gives up 3 runs every game, and what did he do? Gave up 2 runs last game, but he's still basically a guy that has been keeping the Nationals in the games that he starts. Meanwhile, Kenta Maeda for the Tigers, he has been mostly missed this season when you're thinking about hit and misses. He's been hit extremely hard, including for 5 runs the last time we saw him against the Boston Red Sox. He did have a shutout against the Blue Jays through 5 innings, but then against the Guardians, he gave up 7 runs in just 2 innings of work, which has been a little bit more typical than what we've seen. The Tigers are hitting lefties at .228, the Nationals at righties at .228, and you go over the last 10 games, and the Tigers actually hitting lefties at .257 to the Nationals .228 versus righties. But I trust Maeda 0, and I think the Nationals outscore him in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Tampa Bay, where the Rays are taking on the Chicago Cubs. The Rays are thinking the Baltimore Orioles couldn't get out of town soon enough, as they really struggled in that series. But in the big picture, the Rays are still just 3 games under 500. The Cubs 2 games under 500, who have really been struggling mightily as well, getting beaten up over the weekend in Cincinnati. Zach Eflin getting the ball here for the Rays. It is Jameson Taillon on the mound for the Cubs. Eflin's just one of these guys that he kind of just, is one of those guys that every rotation needs, while in this, who can just fill in and, well, not just fill in, but he can certainly, carry his weight and put the team in position to win games. And Taillon, one of these guys whose numbers don't always equal, what the results are. So basically, he seems to get off the hook or not pay the price for a lot of his mistakes. And I think in this case, though, eventually against a team like the Rays, you will pay for your mistakes. I love the Rays in the first 5 of this game. We head to Boston and Fenway Park, where the Red Sox are hosting the Phillies. Cutter Crawford on the bump for the Red Sox, while Zach Wheeler gets the ball for the Phillies. Talk about Wheeler a lot because, he's one of these guys that actually doesn't get hurt a bunch and pitches a lot of games, so we get a real opportunity to speak about him. thing about Wheeler, he's generally up against tougher competition, so he is a tough luck loser for a good portion of his career. But lately, he has really pitched well, allowing just 1 run last time out against the Brewers and 0 runs against the Giants in a game that the Phillies ironically lost 1-0, a typical type Wheeler thing. But the thing is, Cutter Crawford, who goes here for the Red Sox, has not been very good, allowing 4 runs, 5 runs, and 6 runs in his last 3 starts. And going up against this Phillies lineup that certainly can hit the ball. Of course, they are heading back from London, so, maybe a little bit of jet lag, but probably not enough to help the Red Sox here. I like the way the Phillies are hitting right-handed pitching at 246, and over their last 10 games, just 234 versus righties, but then again, they weren't facing Cutter Crawford. I'll take the Phillies first 5 in this one. For our next game, we head to Citi Field in New York, where the Mets are taking on the Marlins. Of course, the Mets returning home from London, while the Marlins really not playing their best baseball once again recently. It's been a choppy season for them. Jesus Luzardo on the mound for the Marlins, up against McGill for the Mets. Luzardo allowed 9 runs in his last start against the Tampa Bay Rays. He got roughed up, and then prior to that, allowed 3 against the Padres, and before that, he had been pitching extremely well. McGill allowed 5 runs last time out, 4 of those earned against the Washington Nationals, and prior to that, well, we hadn't seen much of him this season, but he had pitched pretty well as well. We know the Mets, had struggles earlier this season versus left-handed pitching, but they've really turned that around. Now hitting 257 for the season versus lefties to 239 versus righties for the Marlins. You look at the last 10 games, and the Mets are up to 351 versus left-handed pitching, just 255 for the Marlins. The thing is, you give the Mets an excuse, and just when you start to have faith in them that they're starting to play well, that's a good time to start fading them. I'm going to take the Marlins in the first 5 of this game. For our next game, we head to Cincinnati, where the Reds are taking on the Guardians in the Battle of Ohio. Tristan McKenzie getting the bump here for the Guardians, while Brent Suter is on the mound for the Reds. One thing we've seen from Suter this season, he is a reliever at this point in his career. He pitches maybe an inning at most. So as far as him listed as a starter, it just means that it's a bullpen game is really all that means. Meanwhile, Tristan McKenzie, this guy was seen as a phenom coming up, but we haven't seen that from him this season. He's had his moments, and we know McKenzie certainly has the stuff, but he just doesn't look right, getting jacked for 5 runs last time out against the Royals, 4 runs prior to that against the Colorado Rockies, and 3 prior to that against the Mets. Ironically, the Guardians won all of those games despite him getting hit that hard, and he racked up some pretty good strikeouts, 7 last time out and 9 prior to that. We look at the way these teams are hitting, and the Reds have been hot, but hitting just 224 for the season to 237 for the Guardians. But the Reds, as of late, have brought that up to 279. I like them to hit McKenzie at home here. I like the Reds in the first 5 of this game. For our next game, we head to Target Field in Minnesota, where the Twins are hosting the Rockies. Louis Varland on the bump for the Twinkies, while Cal Quantrill gets the ball here for the Rockies. Twins did get the win on Monday, and one thing we've seen from the Twins this season, they string those wins together. They got that win on Sunday in extra innings in Pittsburgh, carried it over to a win on Monday. Today they sent Varland to the mound, who was a starter last year for them until he was absolutely busted up in the starting role, and then he relegated him to the bullpen. He still finished with an ERA close to 10. Meanwhile, Cal Quantrill's got an ERA in the mid-3s, but you have to remember, he pitches for the Rockies, so half his games are at Coors Field, so making that 3 and change ERA that he's sporting almost, even more remarkable. We look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball, and, it's the Rockies hitting 243 to 228 for the Twins, and over their last 10 games, 230 to 215, once again in favor of the Rockies, and even down to the last 10. I think, with Varland going, I think the Rockies get some cracks in. I'm going to take the Rockies in the first 5, and that's going to be my pick. For our next game, we head to St. Louis, where the Cardinals are hosting the Pittsburgh Pirates. Miles Mikolas on the mound for the Cards, while Paul Skeens gets the ball here for the Pirates. I'm usually not a believer in the hype train. In fact, I think I get a pretty negative reputation sometimes here on YouTube because I'm on so much on the opposite side of the hype train and the popular teams. But the thing is, Paul Skeens is a lot more than just a hype train. This guy is the real deal, and I tell you, if you haven't seen him pitch, tune into this one for a little bit and you're going to see something special. Mikolas has been, good and bad at times, pretty much the story of his career. He pitches really well against the Cubs, and that's why I believe the Cardinals still keep him around. But Skeens is a strikeout machine. He has the full repertoire catalog of pitches in his repertoire. Meanwhile, the Cardinals hitting 240 on the season versus righties. The Pirates just 223, but over the last 10 games, it's 236 for the Pirates, just 223 for the struggling Cards. I like the Pirates in this one. I don't think they get a bat on Skeens. For our next game, we head to Kansas City, where the Royals are hosting the New York Yankees. The Yankees continued their hot play on Monday, beating the Royals and beating them pretty soundly. And I'll tell you what, it was their 13th win in a row against American League Central teams. So something to take note of there. The Royals go with Brady Singer today up against Marcus Stroman for the Yankees. Singer has been pretty solid this season. He's got a 2.76 ERA. Allowed 3 runs his last start, though, against the Guardians. He allowed 0 prior to that against Twins, but 2 prior to that against the Rays. So I think he's starting to go possibly in the wrong direction. Marcus Stroman here on the mound for the Yankees, and Stroman last time out, his worst outing of the season, lasting just 4 1/3 against the Minnesota Twins in a game that the Yankees ended up winning. The Yankees bats, they haven't really put up like average type numbers when you look at that, and you look at them versus righties, though. 258 overall on the season, 250 over their last 10, while the Royals hitting 264. But the Yankees seem to get the timely hitting and the big hitting. I'm going to take the Yankees in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Milwaukee, where the Brewers are taking on the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays just a game under 500 heading into this game, while the Brewers continue to lead the National League Central, and they continue to pull away as nobody else seems to be willing to go with them. The Blue Jays go with Kikuchi in this one, while the Brewers going with Carlos Rodriguez, first-time starter, 2-time Brewers minor league pitcher of the year. He certainly has all the goods in this one. Kikuchi, we've seen him for the Jays, and for the most part, he's pitched pretty well. And last time, bouncing back from a 6-run allowed performance against the Pirates to allow just 1 run against the Baltimore Orioles. It's been hit and miss for him this season, but mostly he's been a decent pitcher. It really isn't his doing. It's the Blue Jays bats, which have been pretty terrible this season overall. And when you look at over the last 10 games, it's only gotten worse, and that's where the disparity lies, as they're hitting just 214 to 277 for the Red Hot Brewers. Tough to go against the Brewers at home. Especially at this price, I'm taking the Brewers for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Arizona, where the Diamondbacks are taking on the Angels. We got Jose Suarez, on the mound here for the Angels, while Jordan Montgomery goes to the bump for the Diamondbacks. Montgomery has been hideous this season, allowing 6 runs last time out against the Giants, 8 runs prior against the Mets, 2 prior to that against the Marlins. It was 4 against the Tigers. He has been hit extremely hard, extremely often through his last 5 starts, 4.60 ERA. Meanwhile, Suarez, he's no prize either, even though he allowed just 1 run last time against the Minnesota Twins in 1 1/3 innings. He allowed 7 runs in 2 1/3 prior to that against the Texas Rangers. Of course, those performances were last season, so we're not sure exactly how far he's going to go into this game, but we know that Suarez certainly is a guy who has the ability to get hit pretty hard. When we look at these two teams, and their hitting, well, the Diamondbacks, hitting left-handed pitching pretty well for the bulk of the season. Not as well lately, but I still think that this game goes well over the total for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Petco Park in San Diego, where the Padres are taking on the A's. Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Padres. JP Sears on the mound for the A's. The Padres have been kind of up and down. Now they sit below 500, while the A's, of course, well below 500 at this point. But when we look at how the Padres are playing overall, I think that they certainly have a team that can get there. Vasquez, to me, though, is not part of the solution, giving up 3 runs last time out and 3 runs prior to that. And, these are actually a little bit better numbers than I expect to see from him. He's got a 5.40 ERA. On the other side of it, JP Sears has been the best in the A's rotation. The lefty, has been getting hit a little bit, but just 2 runs last time out and then 4 prior to that. But like I said, he is the best that the A's have to offer at this point when it comes to starting pitching. We look at the way these teams are hitting the baseball, And, the A's, of course, not hitting the ball like the Padres, who are the best hitting team when it comes to average in baseball. But still, I think anyone can hit Vasquez. I'll take the A's in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Seattle, where the Mariners are taking on the White Sox. Brian Wu on the bump for the Mariners, and it is Drew Thorpe getting the ball here for the White Sox. Of course, the White Sox bullpen imploding once again on Monday night, but nothing that we haven't seen before. And the thing is that with this video, we really take that all out of the equation. Thorpe is a guy I've been dying to see. I mean, this guy's been traded twice. He hasn't even pitched a major league inning yet. He was traded from the Yankees to the Padres as part of the Juan Soto deal. Then he was the primary player in the trade from the White Sox to the Padres in the Dylan Cease deal. So he's been traded twice before he's ever even made a major league pitch, and for big name players as a primary person in those trades. Of course, Wu is having an outstanding season, but Thorpe looking like one of the most major league ready prospects in the entire minor leagues. I think he comes out throwing in this one. I like the under in the first 5 of the Mariners White Sox. For our next game, we go to San Francisco, where the Giants are hosting the Houston Astros. It's Hicks on the mound for the Giants and Ronel Blanco on the mound for the Astros. Blanco was outstanding earlier this season, but since coming back from the suspension for the sticky stuff, well, he was decent first coming back, but then his last 2 starts, he's been roughed up for 4 runs in each of those. Meanwhile, Hicks, coming over to the Giants from the Cardinals. Giants do this. They find, guys from decent organizations, kind of build them up once they get there, and of course get to play in that pitcher's ballpark, and that's exactly what they've done with Hicks in this one, and he has pitched pretty well. He did get tagged for 4 runs against the Yankees, but I don't think there's any shame in that. Other than that, he's pretty much 2 or 1 run allowed type guy. We look at the way the Astros are hitting, and they're the second best average team in baseball, and hitting against righties, hitting .258 for the season to .240 for the Giants, while over the last 10 games, it is the Astros hitting .258 versus righties to .214 for the Giants. I don't care. I still think Hicks is the better option here, and I think he does his job through the first 5. I'll take the Giants in the first 5. For our final game of the night, we go to LA to Chavez Ravine, where the Dodgers are hosting the Texas Rangers. James Paxton on the bump for the Dodgers, and it looks like Dane Dunning on the mound here for the Rangers. Paxton is a guy that, he has good numbers in a lot of areas, but one thing he gives up is a ton of walks. And when that happens, well, you leave yourself wide open. And we saw that last time out against the Pirates, where he allowed 6 runs, or 7 runs, 6 of those earned, and lasting just 1 2/3 innings. Prior to that, he went 4 2/3 against the Reds, allowing 5 runs. We are seeing Paxton regress in a hurry. Dane Dunning is no prize, and when he's on the road, well, he's generally even worse than he's been at home. Certainly, a first round draft choice, but that really hasn't helped him much over the longevity of things. And against this Dodgers lineup, who hit pretty well at Yankee Stadium and get back home here, I think he might be in some trouble. I think we see plenty of runs in this game, and I'm going to go with the over in the first 5 innings of the Dodgers-Rangers as my pick for this game. That wraps up today's Major League Baseball first 5 innings picks. We'll be back tomorrow as we got Game 3 of the NBA Finals joining our Major League Baseball card. Always a good time, and I believe we have some day baseball action as well. Of course, we're here every day doing first halves and first 5 innings. Of course, we also have my best bets and best bets from the world's best handicappers over at our website, PickDawgz.com. Just click on the Premium Picks tab. I have a link in the description for that as well. Use the discount code PICK to take 15% off. We also have gear like what I'm wearing, this Nike Dry Fit Zip Up hoodie, along with hats like I'm wearing, and other shirts and golf shirts and a lot of different things like that, and new bobbleheads on the way as well. You can find all that under the merch tab at PickDawgz.com. So check that all out under the merch tab. I also have a link in the description. This is Mitch. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow with more first half and first 5 inning picks.